In addition to putting transitions between video clips, you can put transitions between audio clips or the audio portions of video clips. So to see how to do that, let's go to Working Files, Projects, and then double-click on 0806 Audio Transitions. Now, it's generally a good practice when you use a video transition, you're making a gradual shift from one clip to the next, that you also use an audio transition to do the same thing. So, for example, listen to these waterfalls here without any transitions. Really abrupt change. If I put, let's say, a cross dissolve in between the video clips by going Control or Command D, that's the shortcut to put in the default video transition. It's going to sound weird to have this audio not have a transition. Let me click on this guy to make it active. I'm going to make it even longer so it's even more obvious. Make it about 3 seconds long. Let's listen to this guy as we go through this cross dissolve. That just doesn't make any sense, right? You don't want to have that abrupt audio change in the midst of that nice, smooth cross dissolve. So you then put in a nice crossfade, as they call it in the audio world. So let me show you the audio transitions. Let's go over here to Effects, click on Effects, go down to Audio Transitions, and here there will be a subfolder called Crossfade. It's kind of an unnecessary subfolder because there are only 3 audio transitions. Those 3 guys, constant gain, constant power, and exponential fade. And I'll explain all 3 of these things in a moment, but we'll start off by looking at the default audio transition, which has a yellow box around it, just as the default video transition had. This one's called constant power. It really is your go-to audio transition. So how do we put the default transition between 2 audio clips? Well, we use a keyboard shortcut, very much like the Control or Command D keyboard shortcut we used for video. What we do here is we do Control Shift D or Command Shift D. So let me make this panel active, otherwise it won't work. We make the timeline panel active. So now if I do Control Shift D, it adds that audio transition right there. It's kind of brief compared to the length of the video transition, so I'm going to click on it by first expanding the view, and click on it to make it active. And then we go up here, and I'm going to change the duration to 3 seconds as well. There we go. And let's listen to it now. So just gradually transition to the tighter shot, which is a louder shot. And so it makes total sense then to have it work that way. You don't want an abrupt audio transition in the middle of a smooth video transition. So that's how you apply the default transition by using the keyboard shortcut, and you can see the reasons behind it. So let's just take a look at these 3 different transitions. Constant power has this kind of a look to it. If you just take a look at the thumbnail, that gives you an idea of how it works. The audio in the A clip, the one here on the left, gradually drops to a certain point and then drops kind of quickly. And then the audio in the B clip, over here, the second one, climbs kind of quickly while this guy's going down slowly and then slowly goes to its peak. It's kind of a natural feeling transition. So I'm going to play it again here. It just kind of gradually builds up to the louder clip. Let's apply a different one. Let's go to constant gain. Constant gain, if you look at it, I apply it. There you go. Boom, boom. These very straight lines. It doesn't have that gradual change to it or that rapid change depending on which end of the transition you're looking at. Here it just goes down and up. So the transition tends to be more abrupt and a little less natural. And I'm not sure if you'll be able to pick it out here, but it is just a little bit less natural. Kind of had a little dip there in the middle because it's not a constant power, it's just constant gain. And so constant power kind of keeps things consistent throughout. Constant gain might have little dips to it as it goes through. Exponential fade, let's drag that one over. It'll look very much like constant gain, but in fact it's not. The way it works is that it dips down quite a bit and then comes up. It's kind of like a dip to black video transition. It just sort of fades away for a while, then returns. Let's see what that sounds like. Here we go. So it's not really a natural audio effect, but if you were to dip to black, or maybe dip to white for that matter, then this would be a good one to use because it kind of matches what's going on. You're kind of fading away for a second, then coming back. And so even though the little diagram here is not accurate, just be aware that the exponential fade really does kind of fade out for a while and then comes back up. It gradually fades nicely and then gradually comes back up nicely, but it does have that dip in the middle. So the 3 different ones here, constant gain, not really that good of a one to use if you're trying to get a natural transition. Constant power really is the natural version. And then exponential fade is really the one you can use when you're kind of dropping the video as well as dropping the audio for a moment, then coming back. Let's just apply these guys a couple more times to this little transition over here. I'll take the constant gain first. We just have this kind of quiet background sound from the desert and also from this mountain shot. I'm going to expand the view of this a little bit by zooming in on it just a touch, clicking on it to make it active, expanding the length of it by dragging it to the right. There we go. Let's listen to this. Just kind of gradually goes from one to the next. And when you have something like this where the audio is not that loud, whether you use constant gain or constant power, you probably won't notice the difference here. Try it again, try constant power this time. Yeah, hardly notice the difference. But when we go to exponential fade, you'll hear that dip in the middle. Like so. Let me just show you one time when using an audio transition is not necessarily a good idea. I have two sound bites butted together here, right next to each other. I set this up on purpose to have the soundbite here on the right actually have some lead-in audio that goes to it. So really cut it right on the edge of this little soundbite. So I sort of cut off the beginning of it. And the one on the left I cut, but if I had not cut, then her audio would have continued. So if I put a crossfade here, you're going to hear audio from both clips for a while, and that's really disconcerting. Let's put the constant gain there and see what that sounds like. I'm going to increase the length on it a little bit by making it active and making it longer, so it'll be even worse. Let's listen to what that sounds like.
And then my serve just won't work no matter what I roll. So you want to hit it with players.
So you hear two voices at once. So putting in a crossfade when you've got voices that are really close to each other like that is not a good idea because they will overlap, and you really don't want voices or words overlapping. I'll change the transition to constant power and show you that it happens there as well.
Serve just won't work no matter what I roll. So you want to hit it with players.
You've got audios going at once. An exponential fade will be similar, but maybe not quite as dramatic.
My serve just won't work no matter what I roll. So you want to hit it with players.
Just a little bit there as it dips down. So when you got somebody talking and the words would have continued past the end of this clip, or this one would have words that actually start before this clip, and you do a little crossfade here, you're going to have these words stepping all over each other. So if you do that, it's a good idea to make the transition really brief. So let me just click on this guy, replace it with constant power. There you go. Now I'm going to make it really brief by selecting it, bring it way down to the equivalent of 6 frames, which is 1/5 of a second. So let's try that now as we go from one to the next.
Work no matter what I do. So you want to hit it with a player.
So just a little bit of overlap. So generally you don't want to have an audio transition at a point where you're going to have two voices stepping on each other, whether they're different voices or the same voice. You just don't want those words kind of intersecting. So generally you just don't put a transition there. So that's audio transitions. There are only 3 of them, and constant power usually is your go-to transition.